language. I think we've all gotten up like this at one point in our life, and it's never when you're in good health. A difference in dog, a difference in mentality equates to a difference in results. Adesanya was the better striker, but Dricus, more importantly, was the better man and the better fighter. Let's talk science and let's get into what I mean by that. But first of all, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Now let's go. If you look at how reserved Du Plessis was in the striking department of this fight, you could tell that he had a lot of respect for Adesanya, at least relative to recent opponents. That respect translated especially in the third round and into the fourth round, but into the fourth round he started to open up some more. And it was a type of game where Adesanya could do at least two things to set up his offense and control the fight. For one, using that lead hand to pin the guard of Dricus Du Plessis, make him defensive, make him reactive, which then allows Adesanya to come forward. So here comes the lead hand. And you saw him doing it earlier. Here comes the lead hand. He's approaching, and he's able to control just with the feints of the lead hand. However, it's important to point out the difference between respect and too much respect that could even translate to somewhat of a fear, to the point where you see Adesanya is coming forward and he's threatening Dricus, but Dricus is able and willing to respond with a lot of aggression to, you know, keep Adesanya back. So Dricus isn't just, you know, being on the back foot the entire time. He is trying to respond back. In contrast, and we'll look at some examples, every time Dricus comes forward, especially using his feet, blitzing into combos, Adesanya would jump back or sometimes literally run. Adesanya makes a great read here. He puts out that lead hand, he sees Dricus's high guard go up, and then he puts it there again, and you see him like want to throw the right hand, but really he makes that read. He says, oh, okay, whenever I probe with my lead hand, I keep it out there, I can get Dricus to raise that high guard. And you can tell that he reads because just a few seconds later, he throws out the lead hand, he sticks it to the high guard, Dricus's elbows are up, opens up the body attack, and this is in the third round where he really starts to build up the body attack, using the lead hand that we were talking about. Now Dricus tries to respond, but Adesanya gets out of there, but that's how Adesanya responded to almost every time Dricus jumped into or ran into his combos. Adesanya would use his feet to get out of the way. Despite Adesanya finding success with that lead hand, Dricus is not afraid to counter. He's not afraid to fight fire with fire, which is a really important dynamic that was kind of different between the two. Adesanya, not just in this fight, but across a lot of the history of his title defenses, he treats these fights like Elden Ring boss battles. He gets a shot in and then he dodges, rolls, gets out of the way, jumps back. But the danger in him constantly escaping like that, especially when he's not providing any punishments for attempted entries, is that it just emboldens Dricus to keep going. And so these shots are getting closer and closer as he's exiting, because Dricus is getting more opportunities to adjust as he's chasing him down. Despite that, whenever Adesanya is coming forward, he's using that lead hand, bringing up the high guard, and those body shots were crucial, by far the most effective shots in the fight from really either man. But Adesanya was hitting him to the chin. It wasn't really slowing Dricus down too much. The body shots were nasty. And Adesanya is a very aware fighter. He has a lot of awareness, and so he probably hears the grunts, he sees the breathing, he sees the body language, and he knows that these shots are effective, so he starts digging in more and more nasty combos. Now this is a pretty good example of how Adesanya could have tried to respond more often when Dricus was blitzing in with these shots. Lead hand out, measuring, he feels Dricus closing the distance because the lead hand is there to feel Dricus closing the distance, and since he feels it, he can set up the spinning elbow, catch him coming in. I'm not sure how clean that lands, but it's great shot selection, it's a great counter, and it's a great way to punish Dricus for constantly running and lunging in, which Adesanya didn't do too much of, and that's why Dricus was able to catch up to him eventually. But another point, what made Adesanya so dangerous in his prime is that you have more moments like this, right? Adesanya was dangerous versus Paulo Costa, versus Kelvin Gastelum, versus Robert Whittaker in the first fight, because when you attack, he would attack with you. And that's also how he got his most legendary knockout over Alex. But you'll also notice Dricus is finding more success whenever he's stepping in with the straight punches. A lot of the looping punches aren't really getting there. They'll get there later on when Adesanya turns his back, but the straight punches are the ones that are surprising Adesanya the most. Again, Dricus is emboldened to attack like this because Adesanya is not giving him any punishments, only rewards. And so Dricus will throw these long strings of lunging, running combos and eventually get something out of it because Adesanya is not doing anything to stop him in the midst of all that chaos. And an important distinction that I only realized watching it a second time is Adesanya is fine countering stationary shots. So when Dricus kind of barely steps in right there, he's mostly stationary. Adesanya is fine meeting him there, matching him, countering him. But it seems like Adesanya really doesn't like when Dricus uses his feet to close the distance when he blitzes in. That's where Adesanya was doing a lot of the jumping back and eventually running. Again, those body shots are accumulating. Despite that, Dricus is still trying to counter. The thing about a dog, which Dricus is that the more they are in pain, the more they are tired, the more dangerous they become. Now, body language, I think we've all gotten up like this at one point in our life, and it's never when you're in good health. And so yeah, in this fourth round, Dricus he's going through it, but like we said earlier, he's a dog. Adesanya sees Dricus using his feet to close the distance. What does that mean? Adesanya is going to use his feet to try and exit, but he's exiting at an angle that Dricus is cutting off, and he uses that punch to cut off. That angle lands right on the temple, and this is where the downfall starts to begin. Now Dricus is throwing a drive-by combo, and he actually kind of steps around at an angle. You see him take his right foot, step around to kind of catch Adesanya, because Adesanya is gliding around the other side, also like a little bit more of a not straight back, right? He's moving sideways. And so because of that, Dricus steps around, another shot on the temple. And these shots, they look like they shouldn't be heavy, but they are. And these temple shots is affecting Adesanya. Adesanya points to the center of the octagon, but then immediately when Dricus closes the distance, he leaves from the center of the octagon. And again, the straight punches, shoulder, boom, and then he loops around because now he's catching Adesanya at the angles he's moving. So he's using the looping punches actually to catch him around at the angles. And this time he catches up to Adesanya. Again, he has so many opportunities to close the distance because Adesanya's not doing anything to stop him. And so because he's not doing anything to stop him, Dricus corners him, gets him against the cage, gets an arm on him, starts landing shots, gets a takedown, chokes him out, fight over. Now there's a significant difference in respect. Dricus respected Adesanya's offense enough to shell up in a high guard every time Adesanya put that lead hand out. Dricus would still respond occasionally though, but almost every time Dricus moved his feet to close the distance for Adesanya, Adesanya responded with an exit, an escape, a jump back, even running, turning his back. The problem is that only emboldened Dricus because there's no punishment, right? If Dricus wanted to close the distance, there's only reward. And so he was just closing the distance, and eventually Adesanya couldn't escape because his back was against the fence. And so he finally caught up with him, and that was that. A difference in dog, a difference in mentality equates to a difference in results. That's all, fight scientists. I'm out.